Today I'm going to draw and paint this lily using ink and watercolour, and we're going to begin with just some very faint pencil lines to get the basic shape in. I'm going to ignore those two buds at the top. They don't really add anything to the picture and they're a little bit stark and straight up and they don't add much to the composition, so I'm just going to concentrate on that flower in the centre and that one nice bud going off to the side that's got that little blush of pink on it. The paper I'm using today is an Archer's hot press paper. It's £140 and it's 7" by 10". The reason for using this with ink and watercolour really is because it's nice and smooth, and that way your pen doesn't jump around on the paper. If you've got a paper with a little bit too much tooth in it and you're using a very fine liner, you might find it difficult to draw. So this is a nice one to both draw and paint on. So if we look at the shape of the flowers, the overall composition, we've got a straight line really going right from the tip of the furthest petal across to the bud, and just slightly angled. We can put that in near the top of the paper here. So from the tip of that furthest petal on the main one to the bud that's coming up to the side there. And then if we look down from this tip of this bud, of this petal, it's going down slightly angled but not too much, across from there more or less in a straight line to the tip of the next petal, up to that furthest petal, and then again up to here. So it's a bit of a rectangle shape really. Now we need to look at where the centre of that flower is and where everything's attached to the stem. So it's down here, really low down. We've got where everything's attached here, and then the stem is going on a nice curved angle out there. It's got another little bit of stem coming up here, and then we've got the stem also going off to this bud that's going to be about here somewhere. So we're just positioning the main shapes of the composition, not necessarily drawing the flowers in every detail at the moment. Okay, so we've got the bud. This is the bud, this is the main flower. Now look at where each petal goes. It's probably going to be easiest if we put those stamens, whatever they're called, in the middle there to begin with. So you've got this main one here, and then you've got the little polleny ones off to the side. They've got a nice shape to them. Again, we can refine these with the pen. You've got 3 on this side and 3 on this side. And it's going to help us position those petals. So we'll look at the biggest petal first, and it's going off from behind these up into that corner that we created there, and it's got a little bit of a wiggle and a curl, and again we can put that detail in with the pen later. It's a nice fat petal coming all the way down. I do apologise if you can't see what I'm drawing here. I don't want to press on hard and not be able to erase these lines later on, because I want it to be quite a delicate drawing. So the second petal is going up into the furthest corner of this line. So we had this line here, and into the furthest corner there we've got the second petal. Again, it's got nice crinkly shapes here. Have a look at the photograph. I've put it down on in the description, the link to it on Pixabay, and if you have a look you'll see all those little nice details on these petals. So this petal here, it's going away from us, so we can't see the tip of it. We can just see this shape that's going to have dipped in as it's going over and away from us. So you know, we're doing a 3D object. We need them to be curling out there, and I think perhaps I've come too far along with this one. Let's take that in a bit so that this one can come here, and right from the base it's going across and down and round. Much smaller than these two petals here because we're seeing it at a different angle. This one kind of breaks the line, and again it's curved over, so we're getting quite a different shape here. Coming a little bit further out than that. So we can adjust these with the pen once we get going. And then we've got the last one, which is coming towards us, and this is always a tricky petal to draw, is the one that's coming towards you. I've broken that line, haven't I? I've gone too far down here. It wants to come across from here. So adjust all the time, keep looking, and if you've gone wrong, don't be frightened to adjust things. And this is why we use the pencil to begin with. Bring this centre up a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty much where that's going. This here is again curving forward, so we've got this line coming forwards, and then this bit's dipping in, and that's going to be quite a tricky shape to draw later on. I'm going to have to erase some of these lines to make that a little bit easier to see where I was going with that. Okay, so spend a bit of time with this, spend longer than I've had time to do that. Really look at the photo. If you want to, you can measure it, you can get out a ruler. You might also want to put some of these leaves in because that's making a nice shape, the leaf going off to the side. And you're going to want to erase some of these guidelines as well. There's another leaf going up to the centre here. I'm not sure whether I want to put all that green. I think I'll just stick to these three shapes and a little bit of stem rather than putting all that green in that we've got behind there. Okay, so I'm going to take my time now to do the drawing, and I'll come back to you when I've finished that. I won't talk through the whole drawing. When you're using a fine liner, you know, you can get in all that detail, and the thing about ink and wash is it's the drawing that we're concentrating on really, because we want that to shine through the paints afterwards. We're just going to put very thin layers of paint on, and that's why watercolour is really good for this, because it's translucent and it allows that paper and the ink drawing to show through the paint. Before I begin my drawing, I should just tell you about the pen that I'm using. It's a Unipin fine liner. It's waterproof obviously and fade proof, which is what you need for this kind of work. It's a size 0.5 and it's actually a dark grey, which is a little bit of a softer colour than the black that I quite often use, because it's a delicate flower and it's a little bit more muted, so it's a very nice colour to use, this dark grey. So I tend to, when I'm drawing, start at the top and work down, just so that I'm not resting my hand on the work that I've been doing. I will come back to you at times through the drawing and talk to you about what I'm doing, but for the most part I'll put a little bit of music on. So look at all the detail we've got there, some super detail with all those veins in the leaf, little bits of pollen and the little marks on the leaves, which I think is where the pollen's actually fallen on them rather than marks on the petals themselves. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and do the drawing, and I'll come back and chat to you in a little while.
Come all you young rounders, and a story I'll tell of the promise of heaven and the warning of hell. Take heed where you ramble, or too soon you will go. Way up on the hillside where the new flowers grow. Well, he met in the springtime, the sun sinking low. Two star-crossed lovers in the still melting snow, where the loving was easy and the courting was brief. Well, they called her a beauty, they called him a thief. In the quiet of the evening they'd steal away, where the laughter would flow and the fiddle would play. Well, the folks called it wrong, but hell, it seemed alright. In the sun-painted picture, and the day turned to night. Come up on the hillside, we'll have a time. If you'll bring the kisses, honey, I'll bring the wine. And keep your heart guarded, or too soon it'll fall. When one walks back home, honey, one knows it all. Well, she walked up the hillside alone one day, and the heart is a hunter, always knows of its prey. and her father's old pistol hanging loose by her side. When she aimed once, she never shot twice. Well, the air was so still and the sky was so blue. Before she could see them, the laughter she knew. She heard 2 shots ring out down in the town. There was 3 on the hillside, but only one headed down. I was just a baby, but I remember that day when I walked up the hillside, saw 2 mounds of clay. I'll always remember, and I'll never go back up the hillside where the new flowers grow. Back up the hillside where the new flowers grow.
Through the crowd on a busy street, need to find some air in the summer heat. So how about the music, like a whisper from the sea, and a little slow dancing with me? You say you wanna get back on your feet, give you what you need. So how about the music, like a whisper from the sea, and a little slow dancing with me? Time to get back again, life in the fastest lane. Everyone needs to come back around. Slow down at any length. We all have to stay tall. Running through the crowd on a busy street, need to find some air in the summer heat. So how about the music, like a whisper from the sea, and a little slow dancing with me? Slow dancing with me.
Once you're relatively happy with your drawing, just do leave it a little minute or 2 for the ink to dry. It does dry very quickly, but you don't want to just go in with your eraser straight away. Just give it a moment to dry. Even though it's fade proof and waterproof, it will just smudge if it's not completely dry. Okay, so, and don't forget, if you want to put more detail on with the pen later, we can do. We can come back and do that after the paint's dried later on. And if you want to go darker in places, I've gone darker where a lot of the shadows are, but it's not really dark because it's a grey pen, not a black pen, so it's still quite a nice delicate drawing, and it'll look better once we've got rid of those pencil lines. So you'll see that I did use my pen to do quite a bit of shading. So here we've got some shadows, and there's lots of shadows going on in this photograph. It's very well lit, it's got the sunshine really brightly on there, and the petals cast shadows on each other, and everything else is casting shadows. We've actually got a shadow up here from these, but I've not put that on because it's kind of complicates it and makes it look a little bit like we've got extra ones coming up there. So don't feel like you have to do every single shadow that's there. And the ones that you do use, when you're doing these shadows on the petals, make sure you're still going in line with the shape and the way that it's all going into the centre. Everything's attached here, so as you're doing the petals, just think about bringing those lines back down there, but they're also curving over, so if you've got a petal like this, it may be slightly curved over, so in places you might want to do this kind of a shape just to give that, make it a little bit more 3D. Okay, but like I said, we can come back later and put some more pen on if we really want to. So now I'm going to go ahead and erase those lines, and then we'll think about some watercolour paints and what colours we're going to use. You can see how much better it looks now that we've got rid of those pencil lines. Actually, I've just missed a little bit there. So, quite a pleasing drawing, it's okay. I did do my usual thing of setting off quite neat and tidy and then ending up with a lot more scribbly lines, but it makes it a bit more expressive, and that's my style. If you want to be a bit more detailed, you can be. So I've decided I'm going to use the Sennelier travel set for this painting because it's got some lovely, vibrant, clean colours. That really lend itself to this. So the colours that I've chosen are carmine, we've got the phthalo green, we've got burnt sienna, and we've got the lemon yellow. There's just a touch of yellow on the edges of some of those stalks there. So I'm going to start by doing the petals first because they're obviously the lightest colours, and then I'm going to come on and do these later on. So we'll just put a nice wash, and what I'm going to do is wet the whole thing to begin with, the whole of this flower and the whole of the bud. And then I'll pop some of that colour in. At this stage I'm going to leave the whole thing to dry, so it's just so that we don't get any runs. You'll see I did go over the line there and I was trying to lift that out. Red is a very difficult colour to lift out, so just do be careful with it. Red tends to stain and dye the paper. Blue is a very easy colour to lift out, so some colours are easier than others. I tend to work by lifting out, and I work wet in wet, and I work quite quickly. And if you want to lift out with a brush, use a good synthetic brush. Don't be lifting out with a nice sable brush. It doesn't work just the same. So, you know, you can, like here we've got the light at the end there, and I was trying to lift that out because I'd left it a little bit too late. As I was working on this was drying, but you can see you can lift some of that colour out to get that light back if you want to. So at this stage I'm going to let the whole thing dry, and then I'm going to come back on with a few more colours. For those of you that are new to watercolour, I should have explained that they always dry lighter than they go on. So we were putting that quite bright red on there, but now you can see it's pink. You're adding water, you're making them transparent, and what we're essentially doing is mixing the red of the paint with the white of the paper to create pink. If you were doing this using acrylic paint or oil paint, you would need white paint to add to the red to make that pink, but what we're doing is allowing the paper to show through. So that's completely dry now, so I can go on with a smaller brush and put a little bit more detail on. So I'm using the burnt sienna here just to do these little bits. Some of these are actually catching the light and have got a bit more light and shade on the knife, but we know we're simplifying it. We're keeping a very simple painting because the detail, as I said earlier, is in the drawing. So that's enough for those. And then we'll put the green stems in those. Don't worry if it touches the paint there and runs down slightly. And as I say with all my tutorials, of course you can do more detail, you can do less detail. Try and develop your own style, what makes you feel comfortable, and just use what I'm giving you as tips and guidance. Don't feel you have to do it exactly the same. I've got a bit of dust there. So what I'm going to do now is there's one or two areas on here especially where it's a little bit yellow. I'll just pop some over the top, brighten that up a bit. It's a lovely yellow this. I perhaps use it too much and make things too bright sometimes when I'm doing landscapes. I do tend to take this little set out with me, and ink and watercolour is a great way to work outdoors. Very portable, quick drying, easy to work with outside compared to oils or acrylics. Okay, so I've got that little bit of yellow there. And I could actually make these leaves a lot darker. They are very dark, you know, a darker green. But I think we want to keep a quite nice light painting. So again, we're altering things from the photograph. Perhaps a little bit of yellow on these stems, but we'll do that after they've dried. And a few dots. I'm not sure these little dots on here whether we should do them or not. I think I'm going to leave those off. Got a little bit of yellow at the bottom of here. Again, that's going to brighten things up a bit. Some of this green and yellow you can see behind is actually on the petal, not just on those stalks. Probably shining through from the colours behind actually, because of course petals are transparent too and let the light shine through. Perhaps put a bit too much on there. We can lift a bit of that out or just add some water to tone that down a bit. And this is a stage where you could go over the top and add too much colour, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to let it dry, pop a little bit more green and yellow on those stems, and then I think we should call it a day, because we could fiddle about and we could lose that drawing that we've got there. Okay, so I'll let that dry, I'll do that and I'll show you that, but I think that's it for now. I'm not going to put any background on it, we're just going to let that shine as it is. Nice crisp drawing of the lily there. And yeah, I hope you found that useful. If you'd like me to do more ink and wash tutorials, do let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Go ahead and find this photograph, it's linked down below in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back again soon. In the meantime, enjoy your painting and drawing.